Hi biology students. I hope that wherever and whenever you're watching this video, you're doing well, you're holding on, finding some fun things to do. Speaking of fun things, I have been doing some fun things myself, and usually I'd be excited to show you this kind of thing on the first day of a week, like on a Monday, but this weekend I had some fun and show you the finished product. I'm sure some of you have started doing this too. I dyed my hair pink. So hope that you can find some things like that to keep yourself occupied, change things up a little bit, adapt your look to your new quarantine life. Um, from here, I'm going to be talking about some different things that I want everyone to know this week. So regardless of how caught up you are, I hope that everyone's watching this, you can get this message. And then the second part of this video, the last few minutes, I'll be talking about this lesson this week. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, get my pink hair off the screen, and go over the slides this week. So like always, I'm going to start with just some general announcements that I want everyone to hear. So this week is going to be a little bit different than previous weeks. You have a similar to-do list, but I know that a lot of us are in different places in our progress through what we've posted so far. So make sure you're just following this at your own pace. So if you're still working on the lessons, and that means filling out the questions for your packet, make sure that you get that done first. And what I've started to recommend is that if it's easier for you to skip the refined questions, do at least the revise for each week. So each week you have those 2 lessons, 2 questions that go with them, and then you have a spot to respond to the question of the week. I would say if you do anything, that's what I would recommend. And if you can do anything each week, that will give you some credit. And so if you need to skip some things, it will not hurt you too much. I just want you to be caught up and feel at ease with this whole unit, because sometimes when you get too far behind, it's a little overwhelming. So do what you need to do to get caught up, even if that means skipping some stuff. When you finish with that, make sure you turn it in on Google Classroom. So if you click on the assignment, you see the packet, there should be a button that says turn in. And then if you finish everything and you've turned it in, and that's what I'd like you to do, then I will start looking at it, grading it, giving you some feedback for that big assignment. And then that's it for that work packet. And then also make sure you're taking all the quizzes. So as you finish each week, take the quiz. I really want you guys to do as well as you can the first time. I'm going to be allowing some retakes, but some people retake it and get a 1 and then a 2 and then a 3, and I'm not gonna, you need to study so that you get a good grade the first time or the second time. And remember that it tells you what the right answer is after the first time, so it should not really be that hard to get a perfect score on the second time. So make sure you're learning from your mistakes and not just blindly clicking buttons. And then the final thing, which is going to be really important for this week, is to finish your research task. So, or finish all the research tasks. So hopefully at this point, as you do each week's theme and lesson, you're doing a little bit of research on the species that you chose. If not, once you finish everything, you can kind of focus just on that, because that's going to be the main thing we're doing for the rest of the school year. So I really want to get everyone to the point where they're ready to just focus in on the research tasks as we move forward. Final thing that I'd like to say is that, sorry, everything's covering it up. There you go. If you are taking AP classes, I know this was the case last week too, and it's going to be kind of the next week and a half as well. If you have an AP test coming up and you're kind of worried about studying for that, you have permission to skip doing things for this class. I would maybe finish watching this video so that you know what's going on. But if you can't spend 30 minutes a day doing biology, as long as you are, focusing on what you need to focus on, that is always okay. So in general, what I'm trying to get across is that you need to find ways to take it at your own pace. I really recommend not putting it off and getting super far behind, but if it means skipping some things and finding what works for you, that is totally fine. I just want to make sure that you're being gentle on yourself, but also keeping up with what you need to be doing. Okay, here's the schedule for the week. Of course, you don't have to do this each day, but if you're, one of those people that's sticking right on the schedule every single day, you don't have typical lessons like usual. You have mostly just little tasks that are related to the project to get you ready to start putting that together. So you can look over that in your time. There's going to be some readings involved. There's some videos involved, and always you can look back at the Quizlet and do the wellness challenges in the class meetings this week. Get a little funky here. Expectations, reminders, all those things. These slides have been on here forever. Don't forget your class meetings. This week, I'm going to have 2 additional office hours times. So one of them, they're getting pretty early in the week, so you might miss them. And then if you miss those, you can always come to class meetings if you have questions. But I wanted to give a couple more options for times for you to drop in and ask questions and get help if you need to. So I'll post Zoom links for that when it is time. This week, I recommend taking some time to find things that you're grateful for, so practicing some gratitude. So that's your wellness tip of the week. Take some time to read through this slide, try out one of the tips, and if you want to, I've also attached a 5-minute gratitude meditation that you can just play, kind of close your eyes, take a moment, and practice gratitude so that you can feel a little bit better afterwards. I always do. Okay, getting into the intro slides. So like I said, we're focusing mostly on our project going forward. So before we get into this lesson, I wanted to make another note so that I kind of prepared you for what you're going to be learning about. And this is something that I wish I could do in person, in class, have a quick little disclaimer, I guess, or discussion about what we're going to be learning about. A lot of you who did last week's lesson have already seen some of these things. And I know that when we talk about climate change, human impact, just kind of general things that are kind of sad to learn about, it can be extremely disturbing or heavy or sad, and it makes us feel a lot of things that we aren't used to feeling when it comes to school. So I think we're getting to the age now where that stuff we need to be aware of when that makes us feel that way, but also find ways to push through it, because those types of things are going to be in your life. And so you have to kind of find ways to cope with those harder topics. So as you're going through, if you're feeling yourself getting stressed out or anxious or just sad, depressed about it, take some time to feel that emotion, take a break if you need to, but I also encourage you to push through it because, like I said, you have to find ways to be ready to feel those things in the future too. And also, I think the best way to work on these things, if that's something that you want to focus on in your life, is to really understand it. So I know personally, as I learned about this throughout my life, it's been hard for me, but I want to learn more about it so that I can help fix the problems that are here. So with that being said, we're going to be focusing on the main unit EQ this week, and that will help us to finish our project, or I guess get to a nice stopping point in our project before we move on to the next thing. So we're going to be looking at how climate change and other human impact will influence the evolution of a species. And more specifically, you're going to be looking at your own species. Some reminders on here that you can look through of what climate change is and how it relates to us as humans and our species. Also, some things that you're going to be learning about this week. This is kind of what I was talking about, of some of the sad, depressing stuff, of what some things that happen when our global climate changes. So some of the common things you've probably heard of before: melting ice, that's going to decrease habitat for things that live on the poles, like polar bears. And then also some great weather patterns changing. So we get a lot more heavy rain, more flooding, so things like hurricanes or monsoons or things like that that you might have heard of on the news happening in our own country and around the world has increased due to warmer temperatures. Drought, so that's kind of the opposite, but still is something that happens where those dry places are getting even more dry. So we're just moving more towards extremes here. And then also having some seasons shifting, where because it's warmer earlier in the year, you might have things like reproduction moving up, or migration happens earlier, or things like that. So those are some of the very big general trends that you'll see with that. And there's also an additional resource there if you'd like to learn more. There's a couple other things, so I'm just going to kind of keep laying it on, what humans can do to impact species. So some of the reasons why we have such a large extinction problem in endangered species. These are the big four. I call it IHOP. So invasive species, which means spreading things that don't belong there, and they cause extra competition and selection pressures on a population. Habitat destruction, this one's huge. Obviously, our human world has expanded out into wild spaces greatly over the last couple hundred years. This next one has been happening for much longer than just the modern era, but overhunting and fishing. So getting to a point where our fisheries in the ocean are depleted, or wild animals have smaller populations because of hunting. And then pollution is also a huge one of polluting the air and water through industry. So like chemicals coming from factories, and also things coming into the air from that as well. So definitely a lot of problems there. And it's good to understand how these things might also come into play when you're looking at your species this week. So with all of that, obviously it's kind of heavy and upsetting that those things are happening, but you probably already knew that that was a thing. We're going to be focusing this week on how your species, or how species in general, adapt to these changes. So I highly recommend watching this video. It does a nice job at the end of kind of connecting the call to action of how we can change some of these things, and that'll be also something that we're doing as a class in the next few weeks. So we're not just going to end on the doom and gloom. We're going to kind of move into a more hopeful space after that. So I'm going to finish up in a second, but I just want to show you what some of your slides will look like this week. So the first lesson, task, activity to do this week, if you're following the schedule, is to make sure that you finish your species research. So these slides, I just included all of the research tasks that I have already put on the slides, and I just kind of copied them in and pasted them in. And then your second thing to do this week, which if you're following would be on Thursday, is to start planning and thinking about what the future looks like for your species. So again, focusing on your focus species that you signed up for. You're going to be thinking about some of these questions. These are just some warm-up kind of brain questions to help you start thinking about the task. And then you're going to be writing a claim or a prediction about what you think is going to happen, what adaptations will happen, what population changes will happen due to some of these things like climate change. So I have another article for you, and then some tips, and I'll continue to post some of those things throughout the week. Final thing that I have on here is that if you get all of this done and you're still waiting for more things to do, which I know will not be a lot of you, you can start putting together a presentation, which will be your, blank template to create this presentation, which is going to be something we'll work on for the next month. So I just posted a couple of different things you could do that's like a nice, easy ease into the project, like just making your slides, creating it, and just having it there with a title, making an outline, finding pictures. That can be fun, of just like going on a Google image hunt for 30 minutes and just collecting them into a document or a folder. Or you can play with formatting if you like that, but those things can also come later. So whatever works for you, you can do that there. So that is your task for the week, and please join in on our class meetings this week, or join in the office hours, or if you need to, just send me an email and we can talk about what's going on, because I know a lot of us are in different places, might need help. So I once again encourage you to reach out if you need it. So that is that, and I'm going to sign off and hope you guys have a good week.